Hey there. All right, so today I'm going to be working in Tableau and I'm going to demonstrate how to create or generate several different kinds of plots using Tableau software. So first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and open that. There you go. And all right, so once we're in Tableau, we'll go over here to the left here and locate our file type. In this case, my data file was saved as an Excel file, so I'm going to click Excel. And then I'm going to locate that data set, which was saved to my desktop. So I'm going to select that and then click OK. And once I do that, Tableau pulls in the data source here, and we see that we can interact with the variables as we get ready to plot them. But before we do that, the first thing I want to do is make sure that all my variables are labeled, whether they are numerical or categorical, as appropriate. And here we see that rank is numerical. That's not what I want, so I'm going to make that change using this numbers sign here and then selecting string, and then I'm going to click the down arrow here and select alias. And what that'll let us do is rename our data points without actually having to rename them in the data set. So our first level here of rank is assistant professor. Our second level is associate. And let's just shorten these. There we go. Our third level is prof, or for professor. And then we have our full professor. And once we've done that, we're going to click OK. And then we're just going to bop over here to our sheet as we get ready to plot these three plots, namely a scatter plot, a bar plot, and a density plot. Our first plot is going to be a scatter plot. All right, and the variables we're going to use for the scatter plot are salary. We're going to throw that in the columns row here. And then we're going to use year since PhD. Locate our variables here. Then we're going to throw year since PhD in the rows column, or rows row. And then we see only one data point shows up as a sum. See here we have sum for each of these variables. So what we're going to want to do is make that change. So we're going to hit this drop down arrow for each variable and select dimension. And there we see we have our scatter plot. And that's how we generate a scatter plot in Tableau. Next, we're going to generate a bar plot. All right, and the variables we're going to be using for our bar plot are rank and number of professors. All right, again we see we have that sum variable here, so we're going to make that change, and we're going to make sure that the rank variable is selected as a dimension, and then we're going to make sure, well, we see that our bar plot essentially appears already, but if we look over here to our y-axis, we see that we have variables in the thousands. That's not what we want. I don't have 50,000 professors in my data set, so we're going to make that change to this number of professor variable by making sure that the counts element is selected for that variable, and then we see we have a more realistic count of participants in our data set. For this particular data source, I have 397 participants. So we're going to bop back over to our bar plot here, and we see that looking at our bar plot, we see that professors, the rank of professor, is the most identified rank in this particular data set at about 234 here. All right, and that's how we would generate a bar plot in Tableau. And lastly, we have our density plot. And with density plots in Tableau, the software has a hard time generating a density plot. And what I mean by density plot here is, let's pull up R, and I have the same data set loaded in R as I do Tableau. We're just going to run that here. And we see that we have a nice curve here in what's called a kernel density plot. In this, we have kernel density plot of professor salary. And again, we have this nice curve here, smooth curve. And the point of a density plot is to show you that, similar to a histogram, to show you that count of your data points there and where they kind of group together, but smooth out the trend of the data set when doing so. So we don't have the jaggedness of a histogram. So if we go back to Tableau here, we'll see an example of what I mean. For this particular data set, our density plot rather, we're going to use the variables salary and rank. So we're going to throw salary in the columns row here, and then rank in the rows row. And then we're going to, wait, before we do that, we're going to click the Show Me tab here and click this green set of bars, which is our histogram. And there we see salaries displayed in a histogram. And what this does is break the salary levels into bins. So for example, we have 22 professors in this data set that have a salary of $132,000 a year. All right, so there, and again, with a density plot, we're going to see more of a smooth curve of this data set. Or at least that's what you would see in R. But with Tableau, the software struggles to generate density plots. So what we're going to do is try to approximate a density plot using Tableau. And to do that, we are going to add our rank variable here in the columns. And what that does, we see that it splits our data set here based on salary and rank. And then let's see, not what I want. Nope, still not it. There we go. That's what I was missing. Okay, so let's back up here and reiterate a little bit. Okay, so once we've loaded our salary variable, we're going to click this histogram icon here. That'll bring up our histogram, and then we're going to throw our rank variable into the rows row here. Once we do that, we're going to click this other icon with our bar plot and trend line here. Once we do that, both the data sets for salary, rank and salary show up, and then we're going to change those to display different ways. One we want to display as still our histogram here. The other we want to display in the form of a line. So what we're going to do is go down here under our Tools tab here and select Salary as a line. To do that, we click this down arrow here, and we're going to select a line here. And there we see we still have that kind of trend line, but without the level of smoothing that a typical density plot has. See, here we have a dip in the data set here. We have these different peaks that are displayed rather than a more streamlined, smooth version that we see in a density plot. And again, the density plot to compare would look like that. But here's kind of the version that I've come up with in Tableau. And let's see if we can get rid of these, the histogram here. So, how are we going to do that? Let's see. Nope. Let's try this. Let's make this a line as well. Nope. Nope. There we go. So again, we see that we have this general trend of the data. And we're going to take off our rank variable here. There we go. So anyway, there's our general trend of the data. And we'll see, so in this is salary by itself. So what we're going to do is throw back up the rank variable, and we'll see that we'll see the difference in the density of each level. And once we, when we add that, when we add the two variables together there, we'll get a more streamlined trend. And you see the trend widens for salary, but then once we include rank, the trend kind of shrinks a little bit to approximate more of our density plot, our original density plot in R here. And that's kind of sort of how we would, or how I've kind of demonstrated a density plot in Tableau because of the difficulty in creating these kinds of plots in this particular kind of software. But there you go. All right. Thanks for tuning in. Cheers.